So, when was the birthday of Jesus Christ? Well, I'll tell you when it wasn't, and that's December 25th. But who was born on December 25th? Let's find out today on the Alabaster broadcast.
This is a very controversial topic. A lot of people out there get very upset and very defensive about this. And we're going to give our 2 cents about it and our take on it. And Miss Gillyan is back here again, and she's going to be doing a presentation tonight. Share this out, subscribe, all that good stuff, and thank you, and you'll be glad you did. But with that being said, I want to welcome Gillyan Stone back to the broadcast. It's been a long time, Gillyan. How the heck are you? Welcome back to FOJC.
Hi, yes, it's been a month. I'm really glad that I decided to take time off. I am back and I feel a lot more confident and I feel just ready to get back into these topics. I think that this particular topic, and I titled it in a very clickbait way, and I saw the comments, obviously we know that Jesus was not born on December 25th, but we're going to be talking about who was, and specifically the cultural norms that tie into what Christmas currently is today. And I know that you probably know this, but one of the common trends that I find about modern doctrine and modern interpretations of who Jesus was is that, after Jesus went to heaven, obviously we didn't see him physically, and we can't physically talk to him and have him physically in present time converse back. So what does the occult do, and what does Satan do with that knowledge, and how does he turn people away from Jesus? It is to actually lie about who Jesus was, who Jesus who Jesus encapsulated, how he was all man and all God. And on top of that, to completely lie about his doctrine. This is the foundations of how we today as a society are stuck with Christmas, because not only did the occult have everything to do with lying about Jesus, but they also had a military-based effort. It was all a very, very calculated military operation against the doctrine of Christ. And what I find so interesting today is how so many people, they're so against what the government says today. They don't want to trust the government, but they want to trust everything that the government created for our religion. That is so messed up and just so ironic. I mean, if you think about everything that has happened within the past few months, specifically in our nation, with what happened to Charlie Kirk, for instance, and we're seeing that it was an entire military operation that took out Charlie Kirk, but people are still wanting to be gaslit into certain doctrines. What is with that? What is with that? We're going to find out exactly what I mean by military, because it really was just that. So let's get into a quote that I was reading today in the Two Babylons, and this is by a man named Alexander Hislop. You can find this exact excerpt in chapter 3, and so we're gonna read this right now. It says, "The festivals of Rome are innumerable, but 5 of the most important may be singled out for elucidation: Christmas Day, Lady Day, Easter, the Nativity of St. John, and the Feast of the Assumption. Each and all of these can be proved to be Babylonian. And first, as to the festival in honor of the birth of Christ, or Christmas, how comes it that the festival was connected with the 25th of December? There is not a word in the scriptures about the precise day of his birth or the time of year when he was born. What is recorded there implies that at what time soever his birth took place, it could not have been on the 25th of December. So what exactly is Alexander hyslop referring to? Well, let's turn to the book of Luke. And we're going to be reading this verse, chapter 2, verse 8. And it says, "And there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night." And this was right before, everything transpired where the Magi came, they were brought to Jesus, and all these things. We know the story of the Nativity well. So, how is it that we know that it certainly was not in the wintertime when Jesus was born? Well, in Israel, just like it is in many parts of the world, wintertime is very cold. Shepherds would not be out all night keeping watch over their flock. And in fact, the flock wouldn't be outside either. They would have kept them in a sheltered, warm place. This is just, basic farming. People do it still to this day. It's not anything out of the ordinary to keep your sheep or keep your cattle safe from the elements. Now, this is very important because when you think about when Jesus was born, we're thinking, okay, well, at this specific time, it was obviously still warm out. And on top of that, there were some feasts that came afterwards in the Bible that were very important. But one of my theories is that Jesus was born on or right around the time of the Feast of the Trumpets. It makes a lot of sense because Jesus is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. And just as Jesus is a trumpet sound, the birth of him was a trumpet sound of the enemy, enough for Herod to go out on a tirade, killing every under 2 years old, I believe, and under child. That's a declaration of war right there. And then on top of that, we know that the trumpets will sound when Jesus comes back. So these are some of my specific biblical studies. I don't know, Brian, what you think about all that so far, but you can absolutely weigh in.
Well, I'll just say this, Gillian. When I think about this, look, I'm going to be very soft-hearted about this topic tonight because there's folks out there that I truly love, and they're part of my family, and raised up with them, all that. They've still celebrate Christmas, and they know certain things. They know the logistics of Nimrod. They know about the Tower of Babel. They know all these different things. They're very well versed in the biblical narrative. But what blows my mind, Gillian, with all the things like you just alluded to earlier when you were talking about all the things that's happened, we're still doing it. And it's just strange to me with all the things going on, with our economy and everything. And it seems like it's all collapsing around us. And we have this dystopian future along the way. And we're putting more Christmas lights up and more trees than ever before. And it's interesting to me how this is all playing out. So it's like a spirit of either... I'm going to be very soft-hearted. I
It's
don't know
disobedience, Brian. I'll say it. I will say it. It's a spirit of disobedience. And these are some of the things that I've been alluding to in my, multi-day Bible studies. We do Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays right now. But we've been talking a lot about Ezekiel, the book of Ezekiel, which is what we're going through. And it alludes to the spirit of disobedience, even in Ezekiel. It also alludes further in Ephesians. This is the principality of the air. And this specific deity we're going to be talking about is of the air. So it makes complete sense what we are dealing with here. But ultimately, what tonight I want to kind of put the nail in on, I want to staple it in there, is that what we are worshiping was never Christian to begin with. It was never Christian to begin with. We're gonna be talking about the Roman connections tonight because the Catholic Church created Christmas. So I'm going to definitely take Protestantism to the max. I'm gonna go max with that tonight. And I'm going to protest against this doctrine. And hopefully by the end of it, if you are Catholic, I would really encourage you to get out of it ASAP. And on top of that, seek deliverance from idolatry. These are the things tonight.
I agree 100% with that. Absolutely. I think disobedience is a very, very straightforward word, especially speaking about this particular topic. It's like a spirit of confusion, also, maybe, possibly, because I once was
Oh,
there, done that, got
absolutely.
that t shirt. So I once was in this realm. So everything that Gillyan is presenting tonight, I used to say, that's nothing. I used to scoff at folks or was YouTubers back in the day. Oh, this is horrible. What are you doing, Christians? And all this. And I'd be like, oh, there's nothing to that. What about around 2015, 2014? It all started unwinding and the veil started lifting off my eyeballs. And yeah, so I finally started getting the understanding that these, not all is what it seems. And I stopped following the yellow brick road, you know what I mean? So I found out what the wizard behind the green veil was. And now I'm standing in the trench with Jesus Christ, and I'm super ecstatic about what you got to present here about some of these other, let's just say, rituals and these worshiping of other deities. So let's just keep on keeping on, Miss Gillyan. This is going to be great.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to be tying this all back to the Bible. I think that you guys will have your socks blown off because I truly believe that the Lord designated for me to take a break off of social media and then to go straight in with my Bible study of Ezekiel, because everything that I had been studying, when I had found out its connections, I was like, thank you, Lord. I would not have found this out if it would not have been for my Bible study. And going through this intentionally, verse by verse, because you need to know the Bible for yourself. You need to know exactly what it says. You cannot be in this modern day anymore and just go with whatever anyone is saying. I think that it is a bad idea to do that no matter what. Would you just let anyone raise your children? Would you just let anyone spend time alone with your spouse? Would you just let anyone, have the reins to your everyday life? Say they controlled your finances, your spirituality, your house, the things that you wear. Would you just let anyone control your entire life? No. So why are you letting your pastor do it for you in church? Why are you letting the Catholic Church have its doctrine reign over the dispensational theology? Why are you letting it creep in everywhere? Why do you think people are converting more so than ever before? It's because of the idolatry. It's because you are replacing Jesus with your own imaginations. This is just it. And we're going to be talking about it some more. So let's go into the Cult of Mithras. Now, this is a cult that I didn't look into last year when I was doing my expose on Christmas. I was more so connecting the dots between, the Celtic religion, Norse mythology, all of these things. I was connecting those dots to some of the more modern traditions that we worship today, but I didn't really grasp the concept that Christmas was a military operation. I didn't fully grasp that. And I don't think that many of you watching fully grasp that either. So let's talk a little bit about this. Now, viewers, please take notes on the symbolism that you see on the screen here, okay? Mithraism. Worshippers of Mithras had a complex system of 7 grades of initiation and communal ritual meals. Initiates called themselves the untied by the handshake. They met in dedicated Mithraea, underground temples that survive in large numbers. Okay, so these are some of the images that you will see in a Mithraeum. You will see images of interesting creatures. As you can see, the bottom left, there is, this body of a man with the wings of an eagle, head of a lion with a serpent curling around. This is also what the Gnostics called demiurge. But for some reason, or actually not for some reason, it's very intentional reason that, you know, the people who worshipped Mithras had this chimera-like creature in their temple. You also see the feast of Mithra as well, and you see the slicing of the bull. You also see some of the creatures that Mithras is portrayed with. So there are things like serpents, scorpions, eagles, etc. that are all down in this picture, and you can see his followers in this sculpture that are helping him prepare this feast where they are going to eat the flesh of the bull. And on top of that, you see in this Mithraeum, this kind of underground chamber in the top left. Notice the doors and the walkway that's kind of it's kind of painted on the tile here. This is very symbolic, and I will tell you why. And then finally at the bottom right, you just see Mithras at the very end, into where the altar is placed, and he is also portrayed slaying this bull. So let's move on to do you have any commentary before we move on, Brian?
Well, Gillian, this is interesting to me because I've been studying Gobekli Tepe, and some of the imagery you just spoke about, scorpions, the what'd you say, the vulture-like people, and all these characters, that's at the Gobekli Tepe site. So it's almost like, is there something going on here? Is there like a connection here with the antiquity and something to that level that we're living into a ritualistic world here, and these things are embedded into our society? And then just two more things. When I was a youngster, there was Thundercats, the Thundercats series, back in the 80s. And then also I thought about the lion-like men of Moab when I think about this deity, Mithras. So it's interesting. It's interesting these things are found in Gobekli Tepe. What do you think about that, Gillian?
Yeah, I mean, it all goes back to Mystery Babylon. This is what we're going to be discussing tonight, kind of the roots of this. And I believe that the roots of this were portrayed not only in Jeremiah, but very explicitly portrayed in Ezekiel. So let's go into Ezekiel, or actually, let's talk a little bit about the traditions of Mithraism before we go into Ezekiel chapter 8, my bad. Ancient Mithraic traditions were vast, but the thing is, it's very interesting here. The conjecture is that the cult of Mithras was completely different than the Iranian Mithra that was worshipped, the sun god Mithra. The thing is that's not true. Historians get that wrong because they lack a journalist mindset to actually put the pieces together. Historians, theologians, philosophers, they are only looking at what the paper is telling them. They are not looking for common sense. They are not looking to put the dots together. They are looking to defend whatever agenda they are spoon-fed in college, okay? This is what we are not going to be doing tonight. We're going to put on our little thinking caps here. We're going to recognize something called cognitive efficiency, and we are going to connect the dots so that we are able to fully grasp exactly what we're looking at here with the traditions of Mithras and the correlations that led up to Christmas today. So it was said that Mithra was born out of the light that came from within the Alborz Mountains. The ancient Iranians would gather in caves along the mountain range throughout the night to witness this miracle together at dawn. They were known as the Yar Igar, cave mates. So Mithra was documented to be born on December 25th. Now get this. So the sun rises in the east, right? Yes, we all know that. So these people would go into caves in the mountain and they would go and look out every December 25th, and they would witness the rising and the rebirth of Mithra. So let's continue on, because I want you guys to remember everything that I have told you thus far. because it is very important. So Ezekiel 8:7-10 says, "And he brought me to the door of the court, and when I looked, behold, a hole in the wall. Then he said unto me, Son of man, dig now in the wall. When I had digged in the wall, behold, a door. And he said unto me, Go in, and behold the wicked abominations that they do here. So I went in and I saw, behold, every form of creeping things and abominable beasts, and all the idols of the house of Israel portrayed upon the wall round about." Brian, with everything that I presented here, do you notice a connection to Mithraism immediately?
Absolutely. I mean, it's almost like we're provoking the spirits of the Nephilim and trying to bring them back in and make them manifest back into a reality. You know what I mean? I think that's what
It's
it is.
literally, it's down to the detail of what we're seeing in the Mithraeum, where these people worship their deities. We're seeing abominable beasts, right? That lion man, that chimera, and we're seeing the creeping things. Like I told you before, Mithras is shown in these Mithraeum as like surrounded by scorpions, snakes, spiders, you name it, creeping things, right? And we see on the walls round about here in the Mithraeum that there are a bunch of different idols portrayed here, but that's not all. That's not the only scripture I wanted to share with you from chapter 8. It gets worse. It gets worse here. Ezekiel 8:11-16 says, "And there stood before them 70 men of the ancients of the house of Israel, and in the midst of them stood Jezaniah, son of Shaphan, with every man his censer in his hand, and a thick cloud of incense went up. Then he said unto me, Son of man, hast thou seen what the ancients of the house of Israel do in the dark? Every man in the chambers of his imagery, for they say, The Lord seeth us not. The Lord hath forsaken the earth. He said also unto me, Turn thee yet again, thou shalt see greater abominations that they do. Then he brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house, which was towards the north, and behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz. Then said he unto me, Hast thou seen this, O son of man? Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations than these. And he brought me into the inner court of the Lord's house. And behold, at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, there are about 25 men, with their backs towards the temple of the Lord, meaning their backs facing the temple of the Lord, and their faces toward the east. And they worshiped the sun toward the east. When I am telling you that it goes beyond Mithraism, okay? Remember when I told you the Iranians first worshiped Mithras before the Romans did? The connections are explicit. They are there. This is Mithraism. This is, even before Mithraism was called Mithraism, exact same thing we're looking at here. Mystery Babylon. We're looking at ancient pagan traditions, all dedicated towards the birth of Mithra on December 25th. But that's not all, you guys. That's not all. Because when we get into the initiations here, when you think about the Catholic Church and their rites and their history, they always say, you should just look into church history and you'll be educated. Well, this is exactly what I do, Mr. Church History. I will look into this. And usually by the time I actually do look into church history, they're like, oh, well, that's not what we meant by church history. And I'm like, oh, I think that was exactly what you meant. Because the thing is like I said, I'm not a brainwashable person. Okay. And I'm also pregnant. So don't test me when you say don't research or you should research church history. I'm going to do that. And I'm going to use the tools that I have accumulated over the past all of my adulthood into discovering the truth. So I'm going to look into these topics and I'm going to expose you. And this is what we're doing here. We're exposing ultimately the Catholic Church and its genesis for sure. I cannot stand the Catholic Church doctrine. It makes me sick. It makes me ill. When I look at people in my life who are Catholic, I am overwhelmed by this nausea, this spiritual nausea. And of course, all we can do is pray, all we can do is be kind. All we can do is show the real Jesus to them in a way that they, will hopefully come out of this ridiculous doctrine, this doctrine of idolatry, this doctrine of devils. So, speaking of church history and going back into that, we know that the Catholic Church has had multiple ties, number one, with the Templar, with the Freemasons, and with the Jesuits. There are lots of different rites associated. So, in one of the slides I noticed, or that I'm going to be showing you on one of the research points I was doing, they literally had catechisms dedicated to Mithras, just like the Catholic Church has catechisms. They actually only are encouraged to read the Catholic catechisms. And they're not encouraged to read the Bible. They're just like, read the catechism. Read the catechism, you'll be fine. I'm like, what? And they're like, you can't depend on through scripture alone, whatever it's called. It's called sola scriptura. You can't rely on sola scriptura to give you the spiritual fulfillment that your heart needs. You need to read the catechism, and you need to say the Hail Mary, and pray the rosary. Sorry, Catholic Church, I don't want any of that junk. I'm going to stick to what I know is true, and we're going to discover the origins behind your so-called catechisms here. And there's a lot of dialogue here, but this is one of the initiation rites of Mithraism, and it's the 4th degree of initiation. And this is the initiation of the specific Leo. So if you guys want to pause it, you guys can read it if you want to, but I just wanted to put it here. But it's very satanic when you are looking at what it says. It's literally blaspheming God. It's literally blaspheming everything about Jesus. It is sickening. Brian, do you have anything to add before I move on?
Well, I want to go back to just real quick, a few seconds here to talk about the worshiping in the sun, coming out of the caves, and Mithraism, and associating it with the constellations. Are we literally? Here's my question for you. Do you think that they're worshiping the constellations? It's a 2-part question. And are they telling you to look because it's like an ancient gate, an ancient portal? Because it's all collaborating to that great pinpointed day on the 25th. Does that make sense? It's a little bit speculative, but it's a question. Do you think that they're all just combining all the constellations, the as above, so below, and coming up with some type of spiritual, like you're saying during this presentation, a ritual, and everybody's partaking in the ritual, and then these deities start gaining traction in the spiritual realm, and then all of a sudden the humans start building statues and all these abominations on the face of the earth. What's your take on that?
Yeah, no, there's absolutely planet worship that is within the Cult of Mithras, and we'll get into some of that in a little bit. But yeah, I do believe that these appointed feast days for the pagans were designated ritual days to bring power to the gods. What you participate in when you are celebrating Christmas is something called imitative magic. You are imitating the rituals, the rites, the incantations, the wassailing. When you sing a Christmas song, you are practicing witchcraft when you are doing that. And it's hard for someone to grasp that. And it was hard for me to grasp that. But once I knew what I had done, it was very easy to say goodbye. I mean, when you look at all of the advertisements for Christmas, what does it turn into? Experience the magic, get into the spirit of Christmas. Don't you want to experience this holiday season, this holiday spirit of Yuletide? In most, not most, quite a few, I will say, quite a few, or a few, use the term Yule or Yuletide in their songs. So it's not like I'm just pulling this up out of my ear. This is, you're putting it in our faces here, that this is based around Yule, and you're basing it around this divine conception, this immaculate birth. What is very interesting about Mithras is that he was said to have been born out of a rock. And that's very symbolic to me because we know that the rock is Peter of the church. And so this idea that this Mithra figure was divinely conceived and born up out of this rock, it kind of shows you the foundation of this religion. Its foundations are based upon a demonic birth. So yes, I absolutely believe that to be true, that this is a very, like I told you, it's literally a military operation. This is literally, it's spiritual military, physical military, everything it's an operation against us. And I can't help but take that incredibly seriously. It's a declaration of war to me. And you can see people, I think it's so funny, like there are like ex-witches accounts that they'll come out, they'll share their testimony, and everyone's like, oh yes, it's an ex-witch. Yes, they know about Jesus, but the thing is, Mr. or Mrs. Witch, if you claim to be an ex-witch, but you're continuing to do the things in your life that you culturally did when you were still in witchcraft, I don't believe that you're actually an ex-witch. Sorry, I don't believe that you're actually an ex-witch if you're still participating in the things that you were doing when you were a witch, because I can guarantee you still participated in Christmas when you were a witch, because witches do participate in Christmas. In fact, they participate even more hardcore than others because it's a high witch feast month. This is just basic knowledge. So I'm very skeptical to ex-witch, ex-new age accounts. And there are some amazing ex-witch and ex-new age people that I have met and that are my very close friends. But the thing is I participated in witchcraft when I was a teenager. I participated in new age stuff, but I called myself a Christian. But I wasn't alive in Christ. When I became alive in Christ is when I decided not to participate in Christmas anymore. So what do you have to say about that? What do you have to say about, like people who are truly, ready to part with idolatry? Witchcraft is idolatry. It's idolatry of the self, trying to be your own God. When you are participating in Christmas and you're lying to your children about Santa Claus, you are making yourself out to be Santa Claus. Your children are worshiping Santa Claus. You are practicing witchcraft by pretending to be Santa Claus. You are practicing witchcraft by even introducing that aspect into your children's life, and you are cursing them. That is what you are doing. And I am not here to be incredibly gentle as I used to be. Last year, I went through one of the hardest seasons of my life of pure lamentation over those who celebrate Christmas. And you know what now? I've kind of discovered that people have made up their minds, and most of the people that are going to defend Christmas to the death, they are so eager to let their demons come out on you. They really are. They want to project their demons onto you, when you are choosing to walk in obedience. And that sucks. You know, those people, they just really suck. I'm just going to be so honest. And instead, this time of spending my time feeling so in tears, I know their hearts are so stone cold. You know what? I'm just going to lay it all out fact by fact. And if you still want to behave in the way that you're behaving, by all means, go ahead. But I could be the very last person to tell you to stop before you're sent to the pit. So you better listen, at least consider what I am saying before it's too late. Because at this very moment, I have cried for you. I have prayed for you, and I still pray for you, and I still cry for you. But now it's time to kind of kick up the gears, because I don't know about you guys, but I don't think we have very much time here left on Earth. I think that we have, a few years before things get really, really bad. So if this is the shock and awe appeal that you need to stop, to think, to repent, and to go back to the ways of the Lord once again, then I will be incredibly honest. And I'm pregnant too. So the hormones give me a little bit of oomph here, more so than they normally do. But it's just one of those things. You need to stop. You need to stop this before it's too late, because whatever you decide to not repent for, you will be judged upon. Whatever you decide to repent for, it won't even be mentioned to you in the final judgment. It is one of those things that we need to really think about the life that we are living. Think about the walk that we are walking. Because if you're not thinking about those things every day, staying in the word every day, teaching your children the ways of the Lord every day, you're in trouble. You're in trouble if you fall away. I have been in trouble. Okay. I had to take a good long month to work on myself, to do those inward checks. I know better than anyone what it feels like to feel like you are sinking. And I promise you, when you just decide to show up, when you decide to stop your ways and to follow God's ways and to do the hard work to break free and be delivered from demonic oppression like this, all things are possible. You will become more confident, and the Lord will designate assignments over your life that you never thought could even be possible. He will work all things in your life for good. But this is not good. Christmas is not good. And we're going to talk about even more. Before I go on, Brian, do you have anything else to add?
Well, Gillian, I think when I think about folks and I see how they act and react, and even when I was coming around to understanding that this was all just either a biggest, probably psyop, a pecan, I almost said pecan. I think I'm thinking about Christmas candy. There's some sarcasm in there, but no joke. It's like a big con, right? It's almost like we are born fleshly, and everybody around us teaches fleshly things. So at the end of the day, we don't understand principalities and wickedness. We don't understand Ephesians 6, verse 12. We don't understand spiritual application because we have been born into a matrix of a fleshly human, right? This earthly realm, and all we get taught is fleshly things, like the desires of the heart, the lust of the flesh, and then we get bamboozled into believing we are little g gods, and we don't have to do anything. We don't have to worry about a creator. We don't have to praise the creator. We don't have to do anything because we are gods ourselves, and that's the lie from when it comes from the garden. And then all these other mechanisms, which we're talking about tonight, has created a black hole into our society and literally raining down upon us. And like we've been talking about in this program, spiritual applications. The old days, the ancient days, when they're going out and getting out of cave and looking at the sun, they knew what spiritual things was. Ephesians 6, verse 12, they knew exactly what those things was. The angels, the constellations, all these different things. They understood the energy sources from them. They understood the spiritual realm. And here we are in 2025, and it's like there's something going on, obviously, in the sky, the airwaves, But the prince of the power of the air, the airways are being manipulated, and I think we are being vexed by some type of supernatural thing, like you're talking about tonight, and it's literally causing the teachings of the flesh, which we've been resonating with for all of our life, and it's devouring our literally family tree. It's destroying families because of all these fleshly desires of the lust of the flesh and these principalities and wickedness and these Nephilim spirits that are going to and fro upon the earth are devouring and taking families down because of literally a dysfunctional mindset and, like you said, disobedience. And they're turning from the true creator. They don't really have understanding or do have a compass because we, like I said, we have all been born in this flesh, in this fleshly realm. So it's all vanity and literally been being vexed by witchcraft, sorcery, and divination. And hence we are here, shouting to the rooftops that we need to turn to the true creator of all things, the King of Kings, instead of being misled into a demonic path of demons. I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy, right? It is. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. And I think that when we're talking about that disobedient spirit too, it's gonna get a lot more interesting in this next slide that I'm about to show you guys, because you'll find the correlations are actually pretty convincing that there is something going on here. But one thing that I noticed about the research of Mithraic worship is these clues as to, how they have transpired into the modern day. One of them being, or well, there's a few of them. So the Mithraeum, the place of worship for the cult of Mithras, they had these altars and antechambers where they would pray 3 times a day, and they would sacrifice animals, specifically their entrails, and they would recite sacred vows, like we went over the catechism. Their most sacred day was on Sunday. Is that not super interesting? We're getting closer, but look at this outline of the Mithraeum. I think that you guys should really pay attention to this outline, because I'm going to show you in the next slide something even crazier, is that it happens to look like the sky view of modern Catholic cathedrals today. If you look at the difference, what do you think about that, Brian? It looks like identical to the Mithraic chambers, are like these cathedrals and these city gates. What do you think about that?
When I think about this and I look at it, I got on the screen here, and the first thing I think about is the keyhole, right? You have the
Yeah.
obelisk, you have literally the phallic there in the middle of the cathedral there and all that, not cathedral, but the courtyard. And it looks like, you refer to the Knights of the Templar, you have a design here, you have an architect, the sword, right? You weld the sword. Whoever welds the sword is, has the ability as the conqueror. I'm thinking like that. And it's almost like a blaspheming of Jesus, right? You incorporate the cross, but it has other hidden meanings, which hence there's a gate, there's a portal or whatever when it comes to like the alignment of the constellations. I keep referring to that. And we want to bring up too, in the Vatican, a lot of people don't know this, but the Vatican is on an ancient star fort. It's a fortified star fort. They have their own army, and it's a fortified star fort. There's nothing.
It's a military operation, Brian.
Exactly.
See, it's getting too much for me to not think that this is so military. This is so just orchestrated against us as a psyop, and they gaslight us. I love historical gaslighting, because what they think, they think that it could discourage me, but really it just makes me even that much more determined. And I will find the truth. I just want to let you know, historians, I will find the truth. I will find the truth, because I have someone named Jesus on my side, and I have another thing called the determination of a dog who wants a treat. Okay. I am ready for that truth. and I'm going to do anything that I can do to get it. I will go to the lengths to get the truth. And the only truth that I can absolutely depend on is in Jesus Christ, his truth. That is all. And so with that, if I see something that is not the doctrine of Christ, I'm going to find it and I'm going to expose it. And I'm going to try to bring as many people to heaven with me. And people aren't going to like that. I really don't care. I'm trying to save as many people as I can before this platform has to say bye-bye because they're going to shut us down. It's going to happen. And so in this time, I'm using all of the diligence that I can, all of the passion that I have to get you to stop what you are doing and to actually think about what it is that you're doing. I'm going to do my very best. So let's continue on. And we're going to talk a little bit about the steps of initiation here, because there are a lot of things in here that I'm going to be describing to you as you're looking at each, level of initiation that the Catholic Church currently uses today, in the church. So let's look at level 1, and that is the crow. Level 1 is the crow. I find that very interesting because crows are very clearly tied to witchcraft. So like the thing about Mithraism as well is that you have to be initiated, and not just that, but it started in the Roman armies. It started in the Roman military. Mithraism was. And so most of the people that would join in on Mithraism, they had to be initiated by another person they knew, and all of it was high-ranking officials. There were some like regular soldiers, and then on a very, very rare occasion, there were servants who were allowed to join the Cult of Mithras. But the thing is that there were vast majorities of people, and like I discussed in a few slides back, not only did the Book of Ezekiel describe this, but also the Mithraic cult allows for enough room for tons of people to come in. We saw in Ezekiel there were 70 men inside of these hidden chambers. The same goes for in these chambers. They were huge. So many people could join in these hidden chambers, and they could reside in there. They could have their Holy Communion, and we'll get into that as well after I go through these levels of initiation. But getting into like the planet worship too. So the level 1 was seen each time in its inscription for the levels was a raven, a beaker, and a catechus, which is basically like the rod of Hermes, and or like the staff of Hermes, and it had to do with medicine, like witch doctory, creepy stuff. I've been over it in a few episodes of my Marine Kingdom study. We talk a little bit about that. Level 2, the planet associated with level 1, the crow, is Mercury. So we're getting into the planet worship as well. So they would venerate Mercury as they would be initiated into level 1. Now, level 2 is the bridegroom. Is that an interesting level name? Very, very interesting to me. But it was seen with a lamp. Now, this is so biblical, you guys. It's so biblical. A lamp, a handbell, a veil, a circlet, or a diadem. This reminds me of the parable of the 10 virgins. You could see the duality, the dark duality being formed here immediately. You can see what they're trying to do, and it makes so much sense as to how similar this could be created into a doctrine that becomes what the Catholic Church perhaps views Jesus as today. There's a lot of parallels. The level 2 initiation, the planet that was and you'll love this, Brian. The planet venerated is Venus, the light bearer. I do find that very interesting because that was essentially Lucifer's parent in Babylon, son of the morning. I do find that very interesting. Level 3 is the soldier. And so the planet venerated was Mars. And within these, you'll find, in these inscriptions, you'll find, things like helmets. You'll find things like pouches, lances, drums, belts, breastplates, etc. You'll find a bunch of different like military equipment in there. Level 4 is Leo. And we read a little bit about the catechism of the Leo in a few slides back. But they venerate Jupiter. And in these inscriptions, you'll find I think it's called a batillum, a sistrum. You'll find a laurel wreath. So wreaths are being used here. Thunderbolts, and the planet venerated is Jupiter. Level 5 is the Persian, and you'll find a hooked sword, a Phrygian cap, which is another nation's kind of god veneration. Cybele and Attis were Phrygian deities that were accumulated into the Roman religion, which just goes to show how accepting the Romans were of other religions, to basically colonize and adapt to basically controlling the entire world, was by allowing for multiple deities to enter the Roman religion. Another one being like the cult of Isis too, as well as like the cult of Dionysus. There's a lot of correlations here that you can pick up. They were the very first all accepting universal religion. Very, very, very telling. But you'll find the sickle, the lunar crescent, the stars, a sling, and a pouch. And the deity that they worship is more of a tutelary deity called Luna. And Luna is actually the personification of the moon, because the Romans would also do this. They would worship the personification of the different luminaries in the sky. So Luna was the personification of the moon. She was a goddess. So level 6, you have the Sun Runner, which is very interesting to me for many reasons. You can find the torch, Helios, radiant crown, whip, robes, and the planet that they venerate is Sol, just the sun. Like I said before, the personification of the sun, which is Mithras. They call Mithras either Helios Mithras, or they call him Sol Invictus Mithras, etc. Level 7 is the one that's most compelling to me, and that's the father. Level 7, when you have finished initiation, you become a father. So in these inscriptions, you'll find the patera, a meter, which is today used in the Catholic Church. It's like one of the weird hats that they wear, the fisherman hats. You can look this up. You'll find that what I'm saying is correct. Shepherd's staff, garment, or ruby ring, which I find really compelling, because the ruby is actually representation of, I believe, the tribe of Reuben. And so there's a lot of like antichrist dualities here that we're seeing. You'll see a chastubal, which a chastubal is one of the holy garments the Catholic Church uses today when the popes are wearing their fishermen's hats, and you're seeing all of these robes that are decked with gold and ruby. Actually, they do use rubies. Now that I think about it, on the chastubals, a lot of them do, like these red gemstones on their garments. But it's like you're seeing a lot of parallels here, but you'll see like more elaborate jewel encrusted robes. And get this, the planet that they venerate is Saturn at the level of the father. Now, this is very telling, because the Saturn worship in the Vatican is like uncanny. uncanny. So before Brian, I let you interject here, I wanted to tell you guys about a very specific tradition. I didn't put a slide in here, Brian, for that, but I will tell you because I wanted to just specifically tell you. But here's the thing about these gatherings of the Mithraic cult. They would have a communion together, like a holy communion, where they would slice the flesh of a sacrificed bull and they would drink wine. So they would eat the flesh of the bull, they would drink the wine, and they believed that during these communions that Mithra was present during the communion. What does that sound like to you, Brian? What do you think that's called now?
Well, speaking of the Catholic Church, I think they put a statue up of Molech, if I'm not mistaken, and I'll just take it down a little bit deeper rabbit hole here. He's talking about wine and the cow, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I search and dig into a lot of different controversial things when it comes to stargates, portals, what have you, but this one kind of resonates with me.
Mm.
The individuals at the Skinwalker Ranch in Utah, they're looking at bovine blood, like blood from a cow. Mm. And they would say that blood from a cow was like quantifiable, like it would resonate some type of energy. It was like changing like a large amount, I think a bucket or something. There was a significant amount that they had, and it would start to change, and they was saying it was quantifiable. So is there something here, a connection? Is there something here that what you're relating to that goes back to ancient antiquity and people was playing around with, certain things they didn't know what they was playing around with, but now here we are, these scientists and folks are discovering these things, the guys at Skinwalker Ranch are discovering it. And, just to throw us in here, not to get too far off the track, but these levels of initiation, Gillyan, I couldn't help it. I had to throw this in here. Why is there 3 symbols per each level? And then I asked myself, this reminds me of why is there 7 levels? And I thought about the 7 root races, and I thought about the hat and everything and the sorcery and all these different imagery here. Is this go back to like ancient Atlantis or Lemuria, like these ancient 7 root races? Like, are we looking at something here that is like let's just say, remnants of an ancient culture, but they've just like today, how we talk about on the channel here with UFOs and, humans interacting with UFOs, and they're crashing, they're donations, and then we re-engineer them and put bolts and screws in them, right? And it's
so I love. Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine.
Sorry
to
cut you off. No. I'll let you continue after this to give you some more information. But the goal of these initiations was to actually become a son of Mithra. A child of Mithra. That was the goal, which Constantine the Great believed himself to actually be. His entire life was a son of Mithra.
So what you said a while ago, when they did this abomination with this, what was it, a cow, and then they drank wine?
It was this false communion. That's where the Eucharist comes from.
Yeah, so what I'm saying, you're talking about bringing in forth a spirit. Could it be something on the quantified level that the individuals are discovering now in this day and age? And they know that there's a direct tie to the spiritual realm, which will manifest, and these entities will come back and either take over somebody like Body Snatcher, or, we could go down a big rabbit hole talking about Mark V with the Legion. There's so many possibilities, but I think we're onto something here with the wine, the blood connection, the different rubies, these different 7 initiation levels that have 3s. Like it always, how you hear the term all the time. I know you're a little bit younger than me, but it comes in 3s, right? You always hear that all the time. It comes in 3s.
Absolutely.
So is this something goes back to ancient antiquity, like with the language barrier and the translations? Because, hey, if anybody knows who I am, I'm from the bluegrass state of Kentucky, and I can barely punctuate or pronounce certain terminology. But hey, I tried my best with my redneck intuitiveness. How about that? Does that sound pretty good? But anyways, seriously, 7 levels of initiation. This 3s just blows my mind. And then when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, insignias, like symbolism, magic, witchcraft. It's all been embedded as above, so below, whatever type of emblem that you bring down from Earth. I mean, this is crazy to me. This is so crazy. The three levels. I mean, the three imageries for each level, and then the tie-in. The way I'm at it with this right now, this is the first time I've seen this slide. Everybody in the chat, I'm thinking, Gillyan, this goes back to like the seven root races of magic, and then way beyond the Tower of Babel. This is something
Oh
way
yeah.
beyond.
This is straight mystery religion that we're looking at, and this is probably the singular only greatest, like, I guess, kept record of documented mystery religion that we have. There's very little information about Mithraism, but obviously there is quite enough to know exactly where it went. And so let's talk about Constantine the Great, because I want to really emphasize exactly what we got going on here. But the thing is that the history of Constantine grew up. His father was the emperor. I believe it's Constantinople. I think that's how you pronounce it. But that was his father. And he grew up in the military ranks. So obviously, I told you before, Mithraism was originally a military based religion. People in the military, they absolutely worshipped Mithras, and also throughout all of Constantine's life, all of most of his soldiers, they continued on with Mithraism. So by the time Constantine converted, he was very, I think, unique in a lot of ways to be able to make this idea of Catholicism actually work for him, and to create, like I said, a military operation of a psyop to get everybody else on board. But the thing in uniqueness of Constantine was that he was what was called a henotheist. And so he only worshipped the sun god. So basically it was like monotheism towards the sun deity and the personification of the sun in general. So when I told you that Mithraism, by the end of the levels of initiation, the goal was to become a child of Mithras, Constantine literally believed he was a child of the sun his entire life. And so by the time he had allegedly converted in 312 AD, his coins and his pagan coins that he had as emperor, they didn't even actually change until 325. So that's a good, what, like 13 years, I would say. Very interesting number, until his coins actually changed. We know the Romans absolutely had the tech to make new coins. They absolutely had the riches to make new gold coins, new flow, new currency. We know that. That's not a secret. But what is very interesting about him is that he also held the title of Pontifex Maximus until his death. And the Pontifex Maximus was essentially the high priest of the pagan religion of Rome. So he maintained that title until his death. He never renounced that title. So there's another clue there. But there's some more things too here. Is that near the end of his life, in 330 AD, he died in 337 AD, but I wanted to include these timelines for you guys, and this should shock you. Okay, this is real. This is an actual thing. Near the end of his life in 330 AD, Constantine the Great erected a statue of himself appearing as Apollo. And this statue was called the Column of Constantine. What? I thought that he was Christian, right? I thought that he created the Council of Nicaea, where everyone was supposed to just be Christian, right? Right? But here's the thing, is that just a few months before he died, or actually maybe a year before. No, I would say just a few months before he died. So 336 AD, Constantine appointed Julius the First as the new pope. He actually was it's not customary for an emperor to actually appoint a pope. But Julius the First was appointed as pope directly by Constantine, where he was formally titled pope on February 6th, 337 AD, just a few months later. But that same year, it was decided by Julius the First, as acting pope at that time, that December 25th was the new day marked that Jesus was born. So the thing about Constantine, we know that he was in the Cult of Mithras. He believed that Mithras was born on December 25th. He appointed a pope, and that pope changed Jesus's birthday to December 25th. Now, this is where I get actually kind of this just seems to me like an act of God, because in May of 337 AD, Constantine died. He died of a sudden terminal illness in May of 337 AD. And I just can't help but think and believe that God had his hand in that he judged Constantine for the atrocities that he just now inflicted to billions of people. Maybe, I mean, yeah, I would say billions of people up until this point now. But I find it so very telling what the Catholic Church currently worships, what the Catholic Church always was, that is pagan. It was never Christian to begin with. The leader, your literal founder of Catholicism was in the Cult of Mithras and never renounced it his entire life, to the point where just 6 years before he died in 330, I find the 33 symbolism once again very interesting, like you said, Brian. And then in 337, he died of sudden illness. That's curious to me too, because the 3s and the 7s, like we got it in before, he died of sudden terminal illness. But it was never Christian to begin with. The Council of Nicaea was never Christian to begin with. It was a military operation to get everyone on board with an idea that would essentially make all of the masses believe blindly, because the Cult of Mithras was already a perverted interpretation of Jesus. And get this, by the time that Constantine died, Mithraism started slowly fading away up until the 4th century in 400 AD. Do you think that that's just a coincidence? Because I think not. I think that Christianity, as they knew it, Catholicism, was literally just Mithraism to begin with. And the reason why it just faded away was actually because it actually morphed with this doctrine. When you think about the Council of Nicaea, how do you not think of a military operation? I keep saying military operation, but I want you to get that in your head. How does that not sound like the controlled psychological operation of the entire world at that point? How do you think that very shortly after they were able to actually get the pagans on board with their religion? It's because they were all worshiping the same things. We know that it was in the character of the Romans in general to accumulate gods and goddesses and allow them to worship in their areas. So what do you think they did with all the personifications of the apostles, the prophets, etc.? They just literally changed their names to fit exactly what it was that they wanted to worship. Literally in the Caribbean, Catholic missionaries would go to the Caribbean and go to surrounding places like Haiti, and they would ask them, who is your deity? Who is your most powerful deity? Oh, well, now that deity is now Saint Thomas, or that deity is now Maman Bridget, Saint Bridget. It is literally just, it is the colonization, military power, the character of the Catholic Church to colonize to the point and lie to the point where the narrative is not only lied about, but it's completely gaslit because they hold all of their church history. Well, that's in their church history too. I guarantee you that all of the lost parts of Mithraism, I bet you it's in the Vatican today. I bet you they still have it. And I bet you it is in a very special place dedicated to where the Pope can personally worship it. I 100% believe that. There is not a single shred in my mind. And because I can think like a normal human being, I can just put two and two together. I can see a parallel when it's staring me in the face. And I can also see how the Catholic Church portrays Jesus. They portray Jesus in the same light as Mithras. It is no mistake that they do that. And I can't get on board. And if you can really just get with me on some place, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to touch this specific topic, this specific occult doctrine, is because if you can get with me on one thing, it's that we should have nothing to do with the Catholic Church, period. Their holidays, their customs, their traditions, and their freaking church history. I don't give a crap about their church history. I don't give a crap about their traditions or their customs. They're not biblical. And if it's not biblical, then it's not biblical. So stop. So stop. Who cares? Who cares? I'm just so over it at this point. Like, if you can really get with me on something, okay? Like, why do you think the Puritans were hunted down? Why do you think they were slaughtered? Why do you think they were persecuted? It's because they were trying to stop exactly what I am trying to stop today. They were obviously, they didn't have an online space to do it. They had to do everything in person. And they were completely persecuted for their efforts to have Catholicism come to an end. They did for a very short time. You know, that was like, I could only imagine what living in that period must have been like. Just pure freedom, I'm sure. But this is like the most evil of evils that we're looking at here. We're looking at an antichrist. So yeah, I am that bold to say that when you celebrate Christmas, you're worshiping the antichrist. And I hope that it's worth it to you in the end. I hope that it's worth being a jerk to people who are trying to be obedient, who are trying to love on you and trying to share Jesus with you and trying to help you come out of this. I hope that it's worth being a jerk. And I hope that it's worth being blind. And I hope that it's worth having this preconceived notion that you're better than everyone else. Because I can tell you, none of us are better than anyone. But there are some people who try to be like Jesus. So I hope it's worth it. Because ultimately, what you are doing is you are selling your soul. You're selling out. You're selling out. You are a part of the matrix. You are in it. You're not breaking free just because you say that you're woke and, oh, but I know the truth about Epstein and I know the truth about JFK and the moon landing. Okay. Well, what about knowing the truth about church history? What about knowing the truth about what it is you're doing to yourself spiritually? Because I can guarantee you that you're not woke. You're blind. And you're letting the blind lead you. And like Jesus said, if the blind lead the blind, they will both fall into the pit. So do you really want to be in the pit? Because I can guarantee you it's not fun in there. It's smelly. It's torturous. It's dark. And icing on the cake is that you are permanently shut off from God. And when you participate in Christmas, you are shut off from God. You're participating in witchcraft. You're literally mimicking these rituals, and you're allowing the Catholic Church to colonize you, colonize your family, and to take over your entire spirituality, your relationship with Jesus, by celebrating his birthday on a perverted pagan deity. It's just that simple.
Well, Gillyan, that was, you threw the icing on the cake and threw the cherry off into the floor and watched it roll down the hill. But hey, that was some well, interesting indeed. I'll just have to say that. But I want to say this real quick, Gillyan. I always have these, like, I always call it like throw the wrench in the motor, so to speak. And when I do interviews or talk to certain people out there in the airwaves, there was a thought there for a moment. You're talking about Mithras and Mithraism and the Catholics going to these locations and asking about the deities. Who do you serve? What do you do? Who do you know? What are you doing? And I've thought about this. You know, the sons of God made with the daughters of men. You look at the Book of Enoch talking about the 200 watchers, and they taught men metallurgy, makeup for women, anything under the sun, abominations. And you know what else they taught them? They taught them how to do military applications and military recon missions. I mean, hello out there, everybody. So it's kind of interesting that we have these recon missions later on throughout the walks of life. We got people that are coming from the, you know, what I just mentioned to you earlier, the Catholic people. But anyways, the fortified star fort, let's just say that. Let's just play wordplay here, because Gillyan threw some, throw some of those nukes out there. But let's just say this. What if they was strategically trying to find ancient fallen angel knowledge? And what if they was secluding it and taking it for themselves? And what if the 250 halls of that's under the ground of the Vatican, they're supposedly said it burned down from a fire, and there's only 80 miles of it left. I'm not kidding you, folks. There was 250 miles worth of scrolls, tablets, anything under the sun. And I can tell you right now, there was a Renaissance mission that went down here in the good old state of Kentucky. And to this day, we worship somebody on a plaque and worship somebody on a statue. I'm not going to say his name, but if you go back and research it, it goes back and there's a little funding back to the ancient star fort. I can just tell you that. So when you look at the recon missions and everything, and when it comes to nationalities and different things, even back to even the Japan, Taiwan, everything, ancient samurais, you name it, they was looking for something. They was looking for ancient knowledge to get something. So like I said earlier, and I alluded to earlier, that I think they're re-engineering knowledge and technology and to try to be the superior race, the seven root races. They want to be this great so-called white race. Like, literally, I hate to use that terminology. I don't want to get into racism or whatever, but I'm talking about this ancient Atlantean knowledge. They want to be a superior authority and be something that is beyond human, a Gilberine. And I really do think that. I really do think that. Maybe I'm wrong. I misspoke with the...
You're 100% correct. Especially with over the past few weeks, what Trump signed into place, the advance of AI technology. We're literally looking at a lot here. I mean, I've made some videos over the past few months about new house robots, literally like the Jetsons. Like we're thinking about the Twilight Zone, and we have it. Why do you think that all of these robotic movies came out months before the release of these? This was like the most in-your-face predictive programming of all time. But you want to know what, robots and AI? You'll never be as good as humans. You'll never be as good as me, or as good as Brian, or as good as our audience, because we have souls and you don't. So deal with it. I'm sorry. Be mad at me, AI. I really don't care.
Well, all I can say about that is learn a new trade or sharpen your tools, so to speak, and do some redneck ingenuity, and you can get a lot done. So don't ever throw a donation alien craft in my backyard, because this good old hillbilly will go way past the industrial age with that bad boy. But I'm just saying that. With that being said, Gillian, I want to thank you so very much. I had to make some fun there. I actually was being kind of serious, but it was for entertainment purposes only there toward the end. But I want to say thank you so very much. What an awesome presentation here. And I want to just say this before we end it out. I want Gillian to end us out here tonight. Like I said at the beginning of the broadcast, Gillian went really hardcore. She tore it up and just threw the Band-Aid off into oblivion and told you all the truth. And I will just say this, with a soft heart, a lot of people out there, like I said at the beginning of the broadcast, literally love the Lord. And some folks they truly love the Lord, but they still celebrate Christmas. And guess what? I used to do the exact same thing. So I'm not going to be a hypocrite. The second thing is I give a lot of grace, and I'm not going to ever just, go crazy or insane with it. And I'm not saying anything, throwing any kind of smoke toward Gillian. I'm just saying in general, I've seen it, done it. I've even seen a lot of different heartache, like Gillian was talking about in the past and in the present day. And it's just very heartbreaking. And what Gillian is trying to articulate, that her soul is weeping, and it's actually saying, hey, can you come out of Babylon and understand that these mechanisms have been tactically done to us to literally destroy our genome and our family trees and bamboozle us into believing that we worship Nimrod and every type of deity under the sun, but we forget that we have the one truly only King of Kings, Lord of Lords, and they want us to tear away and never really yoke ourselves with Christ. And that's what I'm saying. They infiltrated us. They're doing it to this day. They're marveling after things they do not understand. They're talking about quantum physics, jumping down the rabbit hole. And like I said before, learn redneck ingenuity. Well, I should call it rejected ingenuity. How about that? But try to literally don't let them use tools against you.
Amen.
Learn how to adapt and be better human, and just try to walk that walk, talk that talk, and literally walk with the Holy Spirit, not be manipulated. Because literally AI is saying that we're easily manipulated. That came out, no joke, not too long ago. They're saying that we're easily manipulated, and they even said something else even darker than that. But hey, welcome to the T-800 series with the Terminator. But other than that, Gillian, I have to agree. They'll come up with a new movie or TV show or video game to continue on the same old rhetoric. It's the same old deity. It's the same old Greek mythology. It's the same old Poseidon. It's everything under the sun, the great titans, and it's totally getting ridiculous. And like me and David Carrico a couple of Sundays nights back, we talked about the Nephilim, shape-shifting, merging, talking, looking like us, talking like us, adapting to us, marrying into us, and looking 6 feet tall and probably bulletproof. But the thing is, it's coming. It's here, and this is why the AI and the different waves of manipulation. When you look outside and you see the airwaves, you see the weather going off in every direction. You see different things that just don't make sense. You look out, you sense it, you feel it, your soul is resonating, saying, hey, don't jump ship just yet. Don't get bamboozled, souls. But it's coming to a reality near you. So it's the things, what we have to think is we have to double check, and literally our senses, everything is being manipulated. But the one true thing that can't be manipulated is Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit that is literally here trying to dwell in us and trying to tell us, don't go this way, don't go that way, go the narrow way. And that's the only way. Amen. So with that being said, and Gillian, I want to thank you so very much. I know it's been like a month or so since you came back, but you came out with, literally, I think there's some forests that are, I was going to say something kind of interesting as far as, the trees and everything, the Nephilim and the trees in the forest that move around, all this rhetoric that you see and hear through mythology and different kids' books. I say that some things that you talked about, Mithraism and these things with stargates and portals, I say there's some trees either jumped out of the root system and took down the street and walked off into oblivion. And that's some sarcasm there. I'm trying to cut up here and talk about the Nephilim. But there's so many things. Groot, right? The Marvel
Trees
movie.
are learning not to be in the way of the heathen, like Jeremiah 10.
There you
They're just
go. Now
walking,
you
they're
got it.
uprooting
You got it.
themselves.
You got it. You got it. You got it. So I'm glad you can stay with me. But other than that, Gillyan, end us out here. Do the Carrico Crush because David Carrico is not here with us tonight, and I'm so glad you caught that. I'm so glad you caught that. But Gillyan, so thankful to see you tonight. Like and share this out, folks. Subscribe to FOJC. Subscribe to Gillyan's podcast. But yeah, Gillyan, end us out here. Do the Carrico Crush, and I'll give the floor back to you. And I want to tell everybody, thank you all so very much for listening to us. But Gillyan, end us out.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. I have been really thinking about the way that I want to lead my ministry for a lot of reasons. I was tired of spending too much time crying. I was tired of spending too much time just feeling like I was helpless, when the reality is that there is so much that all of us can do right now to impact our communities. And sometimes the way that we can impact the most when everything else has failed, sometimes you have to get the ice bucket water and you have to pour it over people's heads to wake them up, because this is real. This is happening right now in our world. It is a epidemic. It is a real MK Ultra project. And so I want to emphasize that, this may have seemed very bold, but this is just what we all need to be in these last days. We need to be bold, very bold. And if you're a Catholic, I hope that I didn't offend you. I come at you with a challenge. I want to challenge you. And it's all a friendly challenge, because ultimately, who doesn't love a good challenge? And I think that this is your challenge this year, to really think about what you're actually participating in, what you actually believe. And if you're evangelical and you call yourself Protestant, or if you just call yourself a Bible-believing Christian, what separates you from the church of the Catholic Church? What separates you from that doctrine, really, when you're participating in Christmas? What is it that separates you from a pagan? What is it that separates you from a witch? What is it that separates you from an atheist? Because they all are celebrating the same thing as you, but they're doing it for different reasons. And why are you doing it? Why would you choose to celebrate the birth of Christ on the actual birth of the Antichrist? It just makes no sense to me. I can't get on board with that. I can't relate to that anymore. For me, I was young enough to come out of it rather easily, because I have the mindset of, once I see the truth, I'm going for it head first, because I know that the only one who will catch me is the Lord, our God, Jesus Christ. He has always caught me. He has always carried me. And this is what I ask you guys to do too. Jump in head first to this truth and let Jesus catch you for the first time. Because I promise you, it's not a trust fall prank. He's going to carry you, and he's going to give you so many blessings for choosing to be obedient to him. We will be blessed. We will be blessed for being obedient.